Today we're going to be looking at Lesson 31, dealing with sharing presentations. Specifically, we're looking at sharing presentations that have media associated with it. In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at how to optimize that media. That media could be video, it could be sound clips that have been added to your presentation. We're also going to talk about compressing the media. And then finally, we're going to show you how to package that presentation so that you can put it on a CD or a flash drive or anything that you might be able to transport it to another computer with. And then we're going to take a look at rehearsing timings to be able to set the timings customized for each particular slide and how you might go about doing that. In Lesson 31, we could open our files from the book. However, this file is quite large. It's got some media in it, and the internet could be a bit slow, which could cause for a slow opening of the file. So we're going to go ahead and just open this file from our class files folder. So I'm going to minimize my book, and I'm going to go to class files, IIT, PowerPoint, and we need to go into chapter 4. The file for this is going to be P31 try A. Once you have the file open, go ahead and save this file to your Documents folder. Creating a folder with today's date in it. We want to talk for a second about sharing this particular presentation. Now, if I were to start this presentation, you're going to hear that there's some music associated with it. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that there's also some video in this particular presentation. With this media, it does make our file size larger. And it also presents another problem, and that is sometimes media that might play on your computer might not play on another computer. And so one of the things that we want to make sure is that when you share a presentation with somebody else, or you're taking your presentation to another computer, we want to make sure that that presentation is going to run on that other computer that has PowerPoint on it. To make this happen, we're going to go to the File menu. Clicking on the File menu, here you will see an option called Optimize Compatibility. Now, you may not have seen this option before because unless you've got media in your presentation, it may not appear on this particular menu. So we are going to choose this Optimize Compatibility. And what that's doing is that's taking a look at two different files that are in this particular presentation, and it's making sure that those particular files will work on pretty much any computer that runs PowerPoint. I click Close. Now, you will notice that this icon has changed. It no longer says Optimize Media because the media has already been optimized. That's been taken care of. But now there is an option to compress the media. One of the reasons why you may want to compress the media is because you will notice that this file is a very large file. This file, when we opened it, was over 26 megabytes in size. If you were going to send this email through an email program, for example, some emails won't accept a file size that large. Today's emails, it's not totally unusual for you to have a 20 megabytes file size limit. So what we want to do is we want to compress this to see if we can make the file smaller. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and click this compress media option. I do want to make it presentation quality. I don't want to degrade the media, so I want to keep it at least at standard presentation. If I'm just going to publish this to the internet and people are going to download it from the internet, I could compress it even more. Alright, But I'm going to go ahead and say presentation quality. What you're watching is the 3 items being compressed if there's any option. And I will now close. We've saved ourselves almost a megabyte in size. I now want to take this and export the file. I've got my presentation. I want to now carry that presentation with me to another computer, or maybe I want to give it to another person. One way that I can do that is by packaging this presentation for a CD. One potential issue that can happen is when you insert a video or you insert audio, PowerPoint does not always embed that audio or video into the presentation. Now in this case, because the file size is so large, this particular file does have these items embedded into them. But if you had a large video that you had inserted into a PowerPoint file, it will often not actually embed it. It will simply put a link to it. What happens is then if you copy the PowerPoint file to another computer and you go to play the PowerPoint and you go to watch the video, all of a sudden the video is not available because it hasn't been transferred to the new computer. So by using this feature called Package Presentation for CD, it makes sure that you have all the files needed to show the presentation. And the other benefit of this is it actually packages along with it a PowerPoint viewer so that if you went to a computer that did not have PowerPoint on it, you would still be able to show the presentation because there would be a viewer program built into this package for CD. The PowerPoint viewer that's packaged would not allow you to make changes to your presentation, but it would allow you to present it on another computer. Alright, let's make this happen. I'm going to go to the File menu, File, Export. Here you will see the option for Package Presentation for CD. Now this is a little bit of a misnomer because it's not necessarily just for CDs. A while ago, before USB drives were common, CDs were the way that you would take a large file and copy it to a CD and allow you to transport it between one computer and another. CDs, while you still can do this, is not the most common way of transporting a large file. So you can still use this package presentation for CD and put it on a flash drive. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and package for CD. Where it says name the CD, I want you to actually put in your first name there. So name the CD, go ahead and put in your first name there. Notice that we'll automatically put in the file that we are working with. Now, we're not going to copy this to a CD. This is where I would click if I had put an actual CD in my computer and I was going to burn this to a CD. But instead, I'm going to copy this to a folder. You will see the folder name is the same name that you put for the name on the CD. Right now it's putting it into the Documents folder. So that this will be ready for us to upload to Schoology later, let's click this Browse button and put this in that folder with today's date. I click Select. So now the folder name is got my first name on it. The location is the folder with today's date, and I click OK. Here it's going to ask you, do you wish to package all the linked files? As I stated earlier, this is the main reason why you want to do this when you're transferring a large PowerPoint presentation from one computer to another. So you're always going to choose yes to this question. we now see the folder that was created in my dated folder, my first name, and you can see that the PowerPoint presentation is there, and there are these other supporting files as well that may or may not be used on the other computer. What I'd like you to do, I don't want to have to copy all of these files up to Schoology, so what I'd like you to do is to take a screenshot of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our snipping tool, and we're going to take a screenshot of this presentation with your name on it, save this file to Documents, and find the folder with your date. And I'm simply going to say packaged for the file name. I'm going to call this packaged file. Packaged file. And we're going to save that right there. Closing the snipping tool, and you can now close out of this folder as well. Brings me back to my package for CD prompt. We are done with this. We have copied this to a folder. It's been placed out on my dated folder, so I can close out of this. The next thing I'd like to do is I would like to go ahead and add some transitions to each one of these slides. If you will, please go to the Transitions tab, and we're going to choose a transition for each slide. I'd like you to choose a specific transition for each different slide. It doesn't matter what transition you pick. So I'm going to pick one transition for slide 1, a different transition for slide 2, and finally a third transition for slide number 3. My goal is I want to now create a presentation that could be self-running. In a previous lesson we talked about the kiosk setting. So I want to create a presentation that could run in a kiosk format, but I want to do it in such a way that each slide has enough time for the user, the person who's viewing this, to read what's on that particular slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Slideshow tab. Now I could go into Transitions and set my timing for each slide. However, the timing that it needs to take for the title slide is going to be much smaller than the slide timing that I would need for the Saving the Earth. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to slide 1. On the Slideshow tab, we are going to use a feature called Rehearse Timings. Now, I'm not going to actually click this button yet because I want to take a second and describe what's going to happen. When we click on Rehearse Timings, it's going to begin our slideshow. You will notice in the top left corner a timer that will begin to count off. What I want to do is I want to go through the slideshow. I want to read the content of the slide in a casual, slow time so that somebody who's actually viewing the slideshow would have time to read the content of the slide. Now, in this particular presentation, so that this exercise doesn't take 2, 3, 4 minutes to go through, I'm going to limit my timing on each slide to 10 seconds or less. But in reality, you would actually take your time and make sure that the user would have the ability to read all the content of the slide. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to click on Rehearse Timings. Here's the timer. After about 5 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next slide. I just pressed the button on my keyboard, and that has moved me to the next slide. Now notice that the first timer went back to 0, but the second timer is still going. Alright, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to the third slide now. The timer in white went back to 0. The second timer tells me how long my whole presentation is going. Alright, I'm at 10 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and advance past the last slide. I get a prompt that tells me that the total time for my slideshow is 39 seconds. Do you wish to save the new timings? We're going to say yes to this. Now, I want to see my timings. So the easiest way to do that is to change to the slide sorter view. We haven't spent much time in this view. In the bottom right corner, I'm going to click on slide sorter view. That's the 4 little squares. The other option I could do to get to the same thing is on the view tab, I could click slide sorter. Here in slide sorter view, I can look on each slide and I can see the number of seconds that each slide was brought up. Now, I want to note to you that if you go to the Transitions tab, you will see that the Advanced Slide option has been set approximately to that timing. The slide sorter view is going to round to the nearest second. So for example, this one happened to be 8.51 seconds. So my slide sorter view displayed 9 seconds rounding to the nearest second. In the same manner, my second slide happens to be 17.22. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to round these a bit. So I'm going to go to slide 1. I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to an even 10 seconds. I'm going to go to slide number 2. I'm going to bring this down to 15 seconds. And slide 3, I'm going to bring down to 10 seconds. Again, 10 seconds for slide 1, 15 seconds for slide 2, and 10 seconds for slide 3. I got my initial timings again from the Slideshow tab using my rehearse timings. That brings me to the end of this particular lesson, showing you how you could rehearse the timings for your presentation so that you can set those up and have the timings work out fine for each slide. You do want to save this file to your computer. If you haven't done so already, put it in a folder with today's date. In this lesson, we learned how to optimize our media so that when I move to another computer, my media is going to play even on that computer. We took a look at compressing our media so that we would be able to save file space on our computer, or if I was emailing this, to try to get it small enough that it could be emailed properly. We then took a look at packaging our presentation for CD and mentioned how that was a bit of a misnomer. It really is the ability to save it to a folder on a flash drive, or you could put it on a CD if you wished. And then the last thing we took a look at is the ability to rehearse timings to make sure that each slide had enough time on it so that a user viewing this presentation would be able to look at each slide and read all of the content.